an original narrative, created especially for shadows of love. Sister Isabella's trembling fingers pressed against the stranger's blood-soaked shirt as lightning illuminated his dangerous, handsome face. Rain lashed against the convent windows while she worked in forbidden silence, her vows of purity challenged by the intensity in his dark eyes. Don Salvatore Ricci's labored breathing filled the small infirmary as his strong hand suddenly gripped her wrist, pulling her closer until she could feel the heat radiating from his skin. "An angel shouldn't touch a devil," he whispered, his voice rough with pain, yet somehow tender, making Isabella's heart race with unfamiliar desires that no amount of prayer could silence. The storm outside mirrored the chaos beginning within her soul. A sacred woman caught between her devotion to God and the magnetic pull of a man who lived by his own violent code. The convent of St. Maria della Pace stood silhouetted against the violent storm, its stone walls a fortress against both the elements and worldly temptations. Sister Isabella hurried through the darkened corridor, her footsteps echoing against ancient stones. As lightning illuminated the stained glass windows in bursts of holy color, a thunderous pounding at the convent's side entrance startled her. No one visited during such weather, especially not at this late hour. Hesitating only briefly, Isabella approached the heavy wooden door, her curiosity overcoming caution. "Who's there?" she called, voice barely audible above the storm. "Please," came a strained male voice. "Help me." Isabella pulled open the door to find a man slumped against the frame, one hand pressed to his side, where blood seeped between his fingers. Rain plastered his expensive shirt to his broad shoulders, and despite his obvious pain, his posture retained a commanding presence. "I need sanctuary," he managed, dark eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Without thinking, Isabella glanced toward the Mother Superior's quarters, then back at the wounded stranger. Her medical training from before taking her vows took over. "Come with me," she whispered, supporting his weight as they moved quietly through the shadows. Before becoming Sister Isabella, she had been Isabella Rossi, a trauma nurse at Milan's busiest hospital. 3 years ago, after a personal tragedy that shattered her world, she'd sought peace within these walls, trading her scrubs for a habit, her medical charts for prayer books. She guided him to the small infirmary, where she sometimes tended to the older nun's ailments. "Sit here," she instructed, helping him onto the examination table. "You're taking a risk," he said, watching her gather supplies with practiced efficiency. "Christ teaches us to help those in need," she replied, though she knew harboring an unknown man without permission violated convent rules. When she returned to his side, he had removed his sodden jacket and shirt. Isabella faltered momentarily at the sight of his torso, muscular and tattooed, but marred by an ugly gash along his ribs. "Knife wound," she observed clinically, forcing herself to focus on the injury rather than the man. "Not deep enough for vital organs, but you've lost blood." "I've had worse," he said with a grimace that somehow resembled a smile, as Isabella cleaned and stitched his wound. She became acutely aware of his gaze following her every movement. His breathing, initially ragged with pain, steadied as she worked, her fingers moving with the precision of her former profession. "You weren't always a nun," he stated rather than asked. "No," she admitted, securing the final stitch. "I was a nurse." "What made you trade one kind of service for another?" Isabella's hand stilled. "No one at the convent asked about her past. That's between me and God." He nodded, respecting her boundary. "We all have our reasons for the paths we choose." As she applied a bandage, her fingers brushed against his warm skin. The contact sent an unfamiliar sensation through her, something she hadn't felt since taking her vows, something forbidden. "You should rest," she said, stepping back. "I can bring you water and something for the pain." "Thank you, Sister Isabella." "Sister Isabella," he repeated, his voice caressing her name in a way that made her cheeks warm. "I won't forget your kindness." When she returned with water and medication, he had closed his eyes, but opened them immediately at her approach. The alertness in his gaze suggested a man accustomed to danger. "You should be safe here tonight," she said. "But you'll need to leave before morning prayers." "Of course." He accepted the water, his fingers briefly touching hers. I wouldn't want to compromise your position." They fell into silence as the storm continued its assault outside. Isabella should have left, returned to her cell to pray for forgiveness for breaking rules, for the strange feelings stirring within her. Instead, she remained, watching over this mysterious man whose presence disturbed her hard-won peace. "Why were you out in such weather?" she finally asked, "and with a knife wound?" His lips curved slightly. "Would you believe me if I said I was in the wrong place at the wrong time?" "No," she answered honestly, surprising herself. He laughed softly. "Good. A woman of God shouldn't be easily deceived. Even sinners deserve medical attention," she replied. "And what if I'm more than just a sinner?" His eyes held hers, challenging, almost warning. Isabella felt a shiver that had nothing to do with the cold. "Then you need prayers even more." Before dawn, she returned to find him dressed, his powerful presence filling the small room despite his injury. He looked rested, stronger, more dangerous in the gray morning light. "I must go," he said, reaching for his still damp jacket. "The wound needs proper care," she protested. "I have people who will see to it." He moved closer, towering over her. "Sister Isabella, I owe you a debt." "I don't want anything," she said quickly. Nevertheless, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a card with only a phone number embossed in gold. "If you ever need help, any kind of help, call this number and say my name." "I don't know your name," she realized. He smiled then, a genuine smile that transformed his hard features into something almost beautiful. "Salvatore," he said. "My name is Salvatore." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door. "I will see you again, Isabella." "I don't think that would be wise," she whispered. "Perhaps not," he agreed. "But some forces are beyond wisdom." After he disappeared into the misty morning, Isabella knelt in prayer, trying to cleanse her mind of his presence. But even as her lips formed familiar prayers, her thoughts returned to his eyes, his voice, the intensity that had awakened something long dormant within her. That night, for the first time since taking her vows, Sister Isabella's dreams were not of heavenly peace, but of a man named Salvatore, whose touch had felt like both sin and salvation. 2 weeks passed, and Sister Isabella had almost convinced herself that the mysterious Salvatore had been a test of faith, one she had weathered, if not entirely conquered. The memory of his eyes still invaded her prayers, but less frequently now. The annual charity gala hosted by the convent was approaching, their primary fundraising event for the children's hospital they supported. Isabella, with her medical background, had been tasked with coordinating with hospital representatives and potential donors. On the evening of the event, the convent's garden had been transformed with twinkling lights and elegant white tents. Wealthy benefactors mingled with clergy and hospital staff. Isabella moved among them, uncomfortable in the spotlight, but committed to the cause. "Sister Isabella," called Father Marco, the hospital chaplain, "there's someone you must meet. Our most generous new donor." She turned, composing her welcoming smile, only to freeze when she saw who stood beside the priest. Salvatore, immaculate in a tailored black suit, his dark hair perfectly styled. No trace of the wounded man who had sought sanctuary. Only his eyes remained unchanged, intense, penetrating, fixed on her with recognition that bordered on intimacy. "Don Salvatore Ricci has pledged €1,000,000 to the children's cancer ward," Father Marco announced proudly. The name struck Isabella like physical blow. Don Salvatore Ricci. Even within the convent walls, she had heard whispers of the Ricci family, the most powerful Mafia organization in northern Italy. And this man, the one whose wounds she had tended, whose skin she had touched, was its leader. "We've met," Salvatore said smoothly, taking her trembling hand and bringing it to his lips in a gesture that appeared respectful to onlookers, but sent electricity through Isabella's body. "Sister Isabella once showed me great kindness. I merely did what anyone would do," she managed to say. "Few would help a stranger without question," he countered. "Fewer still would do so with such skill." Father Marco beamed, oblivious to the undercurrent between them. "I'll leave you to catch up while I greet the Archbishop." When they were alone, Salvatore's polite mask slipped, revealing the dangerous man beneath. "You look well, sister. You too. Fully recovered, I see. Thanks to your care." He guided her toward a more private corner of the garden. I wanted to thank you properly. The donation is unnecessary. It's not for you, he interrupted. It's for the children. For you, I have a different gesture in mind. From his jacket, he removed an envelope. This is for your personal use. Isabella didn't need to open it to know it contained money. I can't accept this. I've taken vows of poverty. Consider it a donation to whatever cause you deem worthy. Mr. Ricci, Salvatore, he corrected. And before you refuse again, know that I don't take rejection well. The implied threat hung between them. Yet Isabella sensed it wasn't directed at her. I helped you without expectation of reward. Please respect that. Something like admiration flickered in his eyes. You're unlike anyone I've ever met, Sister Isabella. Because I won't take your money. Because you see me. Yet you're not afraid. Isabella wanted to deny his words, but couldn't. Despite knowing who he was, what he likely did, she felt no fear in his presence. Only a dangerous fascination. I have another proposal, he said. Come to my home tomorrow evening, just for dinner. I want to show you something. That's impossible, she whispered, though her heart raced at the suggestion. Nothing is impossible with the right motivation. His voice lowered. Don't you ever wonder about the world beyond these walls, the life you left behind? I chose this path. Did you? Or were you running from something? His perception unsettled her. One evening, Isabella. Then, if you wish, I'll never disturb your peace again. She should have refused outright. Instead, she heard herself ask, what do you want to show me? His smile was triumphant. Something worth breaking rules for. That night, Isabella prayed for guidance, for strength to resist temptation. Yet by morning, her decision was made. Using the weekly shopping trip as cover, she separated from the other sisters and made her way to the address Salvatore had whispered to her. His estate stood on a hill overlooking the city, surrounded by high walls and security. At the gate, she merely gave her name, and the guards ushered her through with deferential nods. Salvatore waited on the steps of the villa, casual in a way she hadn't seen before. Dark trousers and a simple white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal powerful forearms. You came, he said, genuine surprise in his voice. For 1 hour only, she clarified. Then I must return. He led her not into the opulent mansion as expected, but around it to a separate building. Inside was a state-of-the-art medical facility. What is this? She asked, running her fingers over advanced equipment. My private clinic. But more importantly, he opened another door to reveal a small ward where children rested in beds, attended by nurses. These children were denied treatment at public hospitals. Some because their families couldn't pay. Others because their conditions were deemed terminal. Isabella moved among the beds, medical instincts assessing each child. You're treating them here, with doctors on my payroll, yes. The best specialists money can buy. Why? She asked, turning to face him. Something vulnerable flickered across his face. My younger brother died of leukemia when we were children. My father couldn't afford treatment. Isabella saw him anew, not just the Mafia boss, but a man shaped by loss as she had been. Later, over dinner on his terrace, the conversation deepened. The hour she had promised herself stretched to 2, then 3. What brought you to the convent, Isabella? He finally asked. What were you running from? The question pierced her carefully constructed defenses. I was engaged, she admitted. He was a doctor at the hospital where I worked. The night before our wedding, he was killed in a car accident. She paused, the pain still fresh. The driver was connected to organized crime, a hit gone wrong. Salvatore's expression darkened. And you blame men like me? I did, she acknowledged. But then I realized my anger wouldn't bring him back. I needed peace, purpose. Did you find it? Isabella looked away. I thought I had. Until their eyes met across the table. Until a wounded man knocked on the convent door during a storm. Over the following weeks, Isabella lived a double life. Outwardly, she remained the devoted Sister Isabella, attending to her duties with apparent dedication. Inwardly, her thoughts increasingly strayed to Salvatore, who had become an unsanctioned regular in her life. Their meetings were discreet brief encounters in the convent garden, under the pretense of discussing hospital donations, occasional visits to his clinic, where she volunteered her nursing skills for the children in his care. Each meeting deepened their connection, revealing layers beneath their opposing facades. Salvatore showed her glimpses of the boy he had been before violence shaped him into the man he became. Isabella, in turn, gradually shared the dreams she had abandoned after her fiancé's death of family, of a medical career, devoted to helping others outside convent walls. You still have time to reclaim those dreams, Salvatore told her one evening as they walked through his rose garden, careful to maintain a respectful distance that nonetheless crackled with unspoken attraction. My vows were made by a woman in grief, he finished gently. The church allows sisters to be released from vows. And what would I do then? She challenged. Become the companion of a Mafia boss? His expression darkened. Is that how you see me still? Just a criminal? No, she admitted. But that's what the world sees. What you are. What I am, he said carefully, is a man who hasn't felt truly alive in years. Until you. The confession hung between them, dangerous and exhilarating. Isabella knew she stood at a precipice. One step would send her falling into territory from which she might never recover. Before she could respond, Salvatore's security chief approached urgently. Don Ricci, we have a situation. The Calabrese family has made a move against the northern shipping routes. Salvatore's demeanor transformed instantly. The gentleman vanished behind the mask of the Mafia boss. Take Sister Isabella back to the convent, he ordered. We'll continue our discussion another time. As his driver returned her to the convent, Isabella contemplated the dual nature of the man who had disrupted her carefully constructed peace. Part of her feared the darkness in him, yet another part recognized that same darkness within herself. The capacity for passion that her religious life had suppressed, but never eliminated. 3 days passed with no word from Salvatore. Isabella told herself this was divine intervention, a chance to recommit to her vows, to forget the dangerous path she'd been contemplating. Yet each night, her prayers were interrupted by memories of his voice, his rare smile, the intensity in his gaze when he spoke of his feelings for her. On the 4th day, as she tended the convent garden, Mother Superior approached with an unusual request. Sister Isabella, there's a woman asking for you at the gate. She says it's urgent. Something about the children's hospital. At the gate stood an elegant woman whose designer clothes couldn't disguise the hardness in her eyes. Sister Isabella, I'm Lucia Calabrese. We need to speak privately about Don Ricci. The name Calabrese triggered an alarm from Salvatore's recent conversation. Against her better judgment, Isabella followed the woman to a waiting car. Where are we going? She asked as they pulled away from the convent. To meet my brother, Franco Calabrese. He's very interested in Salvatore's new spiritual advisor. Too late, Isabella realized her mistake. I'm not his advisor. I barely know him. Lucia's laugh was cold. The mighty Don Ricci doesn't visit a convent weekly for confession, sister. Whatever you are to him, my brother intends to use it to his advantage. Fear gripped Isabella as the car entered an industrial district and stopped at an abandoned church. The irony wasn't lost on her as she was escorted inside, where a man in an expensive suit waited in what had once been the sanctuary. Ah, the nun who tamed the beast, Franco Calabrese said, circling her appraisingly. You don't look special. Yet Ricci risks everything by associating with you publicly. There's nothing between us, Isabella insisted. My sources say otherwise. He gestured to a chair. Sit. We're expecting company. Understanding dawned. You're using me as bait, smart as well as holy. Franco smiled without warmth. Ricci took something that belonged to me. I'm simply leveraging what belongs to him. I don't belong to anyone, Isabella said firmly, though fear made her voice tremble. We'll see what Ricci has to say about that. Hours passed. Isabella prayed silently, not for rescue but for strength. She had entered this world willingly, drawn by feelings she couldn't control. Whatever happened now was partly her responsibility. As darkness fell, commotion outside announced new arrivals. The church doors burst open, and Salvatore entered, flanked by armed men. His face, when he saw Isabella unharmed, betrayed a flash of relief before hardening into cold fury. Calabrese, he acknowledged, using a nun as leverage. Even for you, that's low. Franco shrugged. She's hardly just a nun to you, is she, Ricci? My men have been watching. Weekly visits, private meetings. She's either your confessor, or your whore. Either way, she matters. Isabella flinched at the crude assessment, but Salvatore's expression remained controlled. Release her and we can discuss business like civilized men. First, return my shipment and territory, Franco countered. Then perhaps the sister can return to her prayers. The tension in the desecrated church was palpable as the two powerful men calculated their next moves. Isabella, caught between them, suddenly saw with perfect clarity the world she had been tempted to enter. A world where power, violence, and possession ruled. Let her go, Salvatore said quietly. This is between us. Why should I? Franco taunted. What is she to you, Ricci? Tell us all. Salvatore's eyes found Isabella's, something unspoken passing between them before he turned back to Franco. I want her, he admitted, his voice carrying through the empty church. She reminds me there's something worth being better for. The raw honesty stunned everyone, Isabella most of all. In that moment, surrounded by danger, she recognized the truth she'd been avoiding. Her feelings for Salvatore had grown beyond fascination into something dangerously close to love. Franco laughed. The great Don Ricci, undone by a nun. How disappointing. What happened next unfolded with devastating speed. Franco reached for his weapon, but Salvatore was faster. A single shot echoed through the sacred space, and Franco Calabrese collapsed. Chaos erupted as gunfire exchanged between the rival factions. Salvatore fought his way to Isabella, shielding her with his body as he led her toward safety. I'm sorry, he whispered against her hair. I never wanted you to see this side of me. As they escaped into the night, Isabella knew she had witnessed not just violence, but the true nature of the man she had allowed into her heart, capable of both tenderness and lethal force. Driven by a code she could never fully embrace, Isabella sat motionless in Salvatore's study, a blanket around her shoulders, doing little to stop her trembling. The events at the church played on endless loop in her mind. The gunshot, Franco Calabrese falling, the metallic smell of blood in a place once consecrated to God. Salvatore entered with 2 steaming cups, setting one before her. It's tea, he said gently. It will help with the shock. She accepted it without speaking, noticing his knuckles were raw and bloodied. He had killed for her. The realization should have horrified her completely. Yet some part of her understood the brutal logic of his world. You can't return to the convent tonight, he continued when she remained silent. The Calabrese family will be looking for retaliation. You're safer here. Am I? She finally asked, looking up at him. Safe with you. Pain flashed across his features. I would never hurt you, Isabella, but you hurt others, kill others. He didn't deny it. I do what's necessary to protect what's mine. And am I yours? The question emerged barely above a whisper. Salvatore knelt before her, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. No, you belong to no one, not to me, not even to the church. That's what makes you extraordinary. Tears filled her eyes. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel lost. Tonight I saw a man die, and part of me was relieved because it meant we could escape. That's survival, not sin, he said. How do you know what constitutes sin? She challenged. Because I've committed most of them. His honesty was brutal. But caring for you isn't one of them. Isabella closed her eyes. I need time, space to think. Of course, he stood. There's a guest room prepared. Tomorrow, when it's safe, we'll discuss your options. Alone in the luxurious bedroom, Isabella removed her habit for the first time in another's presence, though no one watched. The simple cotton nightgown provided felt strange against her skin after years of regulated clothing. She knelt beside the bed, attempting to pray. But her thoughts remained chaotic. God, she whispered, if this is a test, I'm failing. If it's a sign, I don't understand it. Sleep eventually claimed her, bringing dreams of 2 paths diverging, one leading back to the convent's safe routine, the other into unknown territory with Salvatore by her side. She woke to sunlight and the realization that she had made no decision. Yet her heart felt lighter. After dressing in her habit, she found Salvatore on the terrace, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable in casual clothes, his usual armor of power temporarily set aside. I called Mother Superior, he said as she joined him. Told her you were helping with an emergency at the children's hospital. She sends her blessings. The lie should have bothered her more. Thank you. They ate breakfast in companionable silence until Isabella finally addressed what hung between them. What you said in the church about wanting me. Did you mean it? Salvatore set down his cup carefully. Every word. What exactly do you want from me, Salvatore? I'm a nun. I've taken vows of chastity, poverty, obedience. I want whatever you're willing to give, he answered. If that's friendship, I'll accept it. If it's more. He hesitated. I've never met anyone like you, Isabella. You see the worst of me, and still look at me with compassion instead of fear or disgust. I've seen good in you too, she admitted. With the children in your clinic, the way you protect those loyal to you. That doesn't erase the blood on my hands. No, she agreed. It doesn't. They lapsed into silence again, the weight of impossibility between them. I've been having a crisis of faith, Isabella finally confessed. Not in God, but in my place within his plan. I entered the convent seeking peace after trauma. But recently, I've questioned whether I was running towards something, or away from pain. Salvatore listened without interruption, giving her the space to articulate thoughts she had barely acknowledged to herself. When I'm with you, she continued, I feel alive in ways I'd forgotten. It terrifies me, because it challenges everything I thought I wanted. What do you want now? He asked quietly. Isabella took a deep breath. I don't know, but I need to find out without running away again. She met his gaze directly. I've never been with a man. My fiancé and I were waiting for marriage. After his death, I took vows. This attraction between us, it's completely unfamiliar territory. Surprise registered on Salvatore's face, followed by something deeper. Not just desire, but profound tenderness. Isabella. He said her name like a prayer. I would never rush you or push you towards something you'd regret. What if? She hesitated, gathering courage. What if I want to explore these feelings? Not immediately, but eventually. His expression grew serious. Then I would suggest you do something proper first. Proper, she echoed, confused. Request release from your vows. Not for me, but for yourself. Discover who Isabella is outside of Sister Isabella. If after that, you still want to explore what's between us, I'll be here. His restraint touched her deeply. This dangerous man, accustomed to taking what he wanted, was offering her freedom to choose her own path. There's something else, he added, reaching for her hand hesitantly. When she didn't pull away, he continued. If we were to pursue this, I wouldn't want secrecy or scandal. I would want to court you properly. With intention. Court me. A surprised laugh escaped her. Like in old novels. I'm traditional in some ways, he said with a small smile. If you choose me, Isabella, I would want to make you my wife. Nothing less. The declaration stunned her. You can't mean that. I've never been more serious, he insisted. My world is dangerous, yes. But as my wife, you would have every protection, every luxury, and my complete devotion. Marriage, she whispered. The concept both terrifying and exhilarating. Not today, he clarified. Not until you're certain. But yes, marriage would be my intention. Isabella's mind raced with implications. The church, my sisters, they would never understand. Then let me speak with Mother Superior, Salvatore suggested. Not about us specifically, but about your reconsideration of your vocation. I can be persuasive without being threatening. She's not easily intimidated, Isabella warned, but found herself considering his offer. Later that day, Isabella returned to the convent with Salvatore. To her surprise, Mother Superior received them in her office without obvious judgment. Don Ricci has explained your assistance with the emergency at the hospital, she said. He speaks highly of your nursing skills. Isabella glanced at Salvatore, who maintained a respectful demeanor. Mother, she began carefully, recent events have led me to question my vocation. I request time for discernment. Regarding my continuing service as a sister, Mother Superior studied her face. This isn't sudden, is it? I've noticed changes in you these past months. No, Isabella admitted. It's not sudden. The older woman nodded slowly. The church doesn't desire reluctant servants, my child. If you wish to explore release from your temporary vows, I won't stand in your way. Relief washed over Isabella. She had expected resistance, perhaps even accusations regarding her relationship with Salvatore. As they left the Mother Superior's office, Salvatore whispered, "What did I tell you? Persuasive. What did you say to her?" Isabella asked. His smile was enigmatic. Only the truth that you have gifts the world needs, and that your heart is seeking a different path to serve God. Isabella realized then that her decision was already made. The path back to her former life had closed, while the one leading to Salvatore and an unknown future beckoned with both danger and promise. 6 months later, Isabella stood before a mirror in a suite at Lake Como's most exclusive hotel, barely recognizing herself in the elegant ivory gown. Her dark hair, freed from the convent's confines, fell in soft waves past her shoulders, the diamond pendant at her throat. Salvatore's first gift after her release from vows caught the sunlight streaming through the windows. Those months had transformed her life completely. After receiving dispensation from her temporary vows, she had moved into a small apartment Salvatore provided, insisting on maintaining her independence while they courted properly. She had resumed nursing part-time at his children's clinic, rediscovering her passion for medicine without the constraints of religious life. Salvatore had been true to his word, patient, respectful, never pushing beyond what she was ready for. Their relationship deepened through conversations, shared meals, and gradual physical affection that never crossed the boundaries she established. Each step toward intimacy was Isabella's choice, each new experience a revelation. When his proposal came formally, on one knee despite his power and position, Isabella accepted without hesitation. She had found not just love but purpose, becoming the heart in Salvatore's harsh world, the conscience he respected, the future he wanted to be worthy of. A knock at the door interrupted her reflections. Lucia entered, not Franco's sister, but Salvatore's cousin who had become Isabella's unlikely friend. "It's time," Lucia announced, adjusting Isabella's veil. "Are you nervous?" "Strangely, no," Isabella replied truthfully. "I've never been more certain of anything." The ceremony took place in the hotel's lakeside garden, an intimate gathering, despite Salvatore's prominence. His associates stood respectfully on one side, their dangerous auras temporarily softened by the occasion. On the other side sat Isabella's few friends from her previous life, former colleagues who had supported her transition from religious to secular life. Mother Superior had declined the invitation, but sent a blessing, a small gesture that meant more to Isabella than she had expected. When Salvatore turned to watch her walk toward him, the naked emotion on his face, visible only to her, confirmed everything. This man, with all his complexity and darkness, loved her completely, and she, once devoted to a higher calling, had found divine purpose in loving him in return. Their vows were traditional, with one significant addition. "I promise to respect your conscience," Salvatore vowed publicly, "and never ask you to compromise your principles for my benefit." Isabella's response included her own promise. "I'll be your partner in all things, your comfort in darkness, and your reminder of the light." The reception that followed balanced Salvatore's world with Isabella's sensibilities. Elegant but not ostentatious, powerful but not intimidating. She watched her husband move among his associates, noting how his authority remained absolute even in this celebratory setting. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, returning to her side and noticing her thoughtful expression. "No," she smiled, taking his hand. "Just appreciating the complexity of the man I married." Later that night, they flew by private helicopter to Salvatore's secluded villa on the Venetian lagoon. As they entered the master suite, Isabella felt momentary nervousness despite her certainty. Salvatore sensed her hesitation. "We have all the time in the world," he assured her, gently kissing her forehead. "Nothing happens tonight that you don't want." "I want everything," she admitted, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I'm just new to everything." His smile was tender as he cupped her face. "Then we'll discover it together." What followed was a revelation. Salvatore's strength tempered by extraordinary gentleness, his experience guided by attentiveness to her responses. Isabella found herself awakening to sensations she had never imagined during her years of religious discipline, her body responding to his with an instinctual knowledge that transcended her inexperience. "Are you all right?" he whispered afterward, cradling her against his chest. Isabella nodded, too overwhelmed for words. The physical union had been beautiful, but more profound was the emotional connection. the sense of finally being completely known and accepted. "I love you," she said simply, the words carrying the weight of her journey from nun to wife. "And I love you," he replied, the dangerous Mafia boss momentarily invisible beneath the devoted husband. More than I believed possible. They spent 2 weeks in Venice, alternating between passionate discovery of each other and thoughtful discussions of their future. Isabella spoke of expanding the children's clinic, using Salvatore's resources for healing rather than harm. He listened, not just indulging her, but engaging seriously with her vision. "Your influence is changing me," he admitted one evening, as they watched the sunset from their terrace. "Making me question methods I've never questioned before." "I don't want to change you," she corrected. "Just help you find balance." He traced her cheek with gentle fingers. "Balance has never been my strength. Power, control, dominance. These I understand. Mercy, compassion. These are your domain. Perhaps that's why we found each other," she suggested. "To create something better together than either of us could alone." 1 year later, Isabella stood in the expanded clinic that now occupied an entire floor of what had once been Salvatore's private medical facility. Dozens of children received treatment daily, with a staff of the country's best specialists. The funding, while still coming primarily from Salvatore's businesses, now included legitimate donations from corporations and wealthy families seeking his favor. She had kept her promise not to try changing him fundamentally. Salvatore remained Don Ricci, feared and respected throughout northern Italy, but subtle shifts in his operations reflected Isabella's influence. Less violence when alternatives existed, more investment in legitimate enterprises, stricter codes about who could be targeted in conflicts. In turn, he had transformed her life beyond recognition. The former Sister Isabella now moved confidently through elite social circles as Donna Isabella Ricci, using her position to channel resources toward causes she believed in. Her medical expertise, combined with his connections, had created something remarkable. A foundation that provided care for children, regardless of their family's means or status. Their personal life had deepened as well. Isabella had embraced her sexuality without shame, discovering that physical love could be as sacred in its way as her former religious devotion. Salvatore, for his part, had revealed vulnerabilities to her that no one else had ever witnessed. The nightmares that sometimes plagued him, the weight of decisions that cost lives, the constant vigilance required to maintain his position. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked her one night as they lay entwined in their bedroom. "Leaving your vows for this life, for me?" Isabella considered the question seriously, as she did all matters of conscience. "I believe God has many paths for us," she finally answered. "My time at the convent shaped me, taught me discipline and devotion. But this path with you, it's where I can do the most good, love the most deeply." She kissed him softly. "So no, I don't regret it, not for a moment." Salvatore's arms tightened around her. "There are times I still can't believe you chose me, knowing everything." "Not despite knowing everything," she corrected, "because I know everything, the darkness and the light," as dawn broke over the estate they shared. Isabella reflected on the extraordinary journey from that stormy night when a wounded stranger had knocked on the convent door. She had feared then that he would lead her into sin. Instead, he had led her to a different kind of salvation, one where love existed not in isolation from the world's complexity, but immersed within it, bringing light to shadows without denying their existence. Outside their window, Salvatore's men patrolled the grounds, a reminder that danger remained part of their reality. On her nightstand lay hospital plans alongside security reports, the dual nature of their shared life. Yet between them, in the sanctuary they had created together, existed something neither had believed possible. A love that accepted everything, demanded nothing, and transformed both without diminishing either. "Whatever comes," Salvatore murmured against her hair, "we face it together." Isabella nodded, secure in the knowledge that her choice, though unorthodox, though judged by some, had been the right one. She had not abandoned faith, but found a new expression for it. In healing the sick, in loving the complicated man beside her, in creating something meaningful from unlikely beginnings. She was no longer an innocent nun. but she had never felt closer to understanding divine love than in the arms of the man who had once seemed its opposite.